Cancer.
All right, I think we are live. Jason DeFilippo, how are you today?
Oh my God, what a day. What a day. Just finished Grumpy Old Geeks. Had to run over. Actually, I had to go from my audio studio to my video studio, which takes about 4 seconds because that's my audio studio behind me. But getting set up. We got a new rig today and just testing that out.
How often do you have a new rig?
About 6 or 7 times a week, I'm thinking.
I don't
I
think
love
there's
gear. I
anybody in
love
the
gear and I
world.
love playing around with it. That's what I do.
Yeah, no shit. No shit. You're the gearhead's gearhead. Um, so are you discovering any cool new gear?
No, I've actually gone retro. I dug up my old Logitech. I've got all of these cameras, these high-end cameras, and they never worked right trying to get everything synced up. So I went back to the well. I asked you. I'm like, what camera are you using? You're like, this old Logitech C922, and I'm like, I got one of those, but I got an upgrade. I'll try that one. Why not? And
There's
it
got to be a
seems to
break in the
sync.
matrix. There's got to be a break in the matrix when you're asking me for technical gear advice.
It's been one of those weeks, man. It's been one of those weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, shit's getting weird. And
Getting,
speaking of shit getting
excuse me,
weird,
getting.
yeah, getting exactly. Just in case anybody watching on the video is wondering, this is Princess Abigail, and she's one of our hens. And yesterday, I don't know if you could see this, she's got her foot wrap. She had foot surgery yesterday, so
Aw.
she's hanging out. She's hanging out with me today as she recovers from foot surgery. So that's what's going on there.
Aw.
Um,
She doing okay?
yeah, she's fine. She's just got a sore foot, but she's going to be just fine. All right, shall we dig into the mailbag, Doctor DeFilippo?
We shall. Shall we start with Charlotte today?
Yeah, this was a powerful question, I thought.
You've said legendary brands take a stand. There are a lot of risks for people and companies who talk publicly about things like race, social change, etc. Have you learned anything about social issue marketing since you started your call for unity this week?
Yes, I've been getting a baptism by fire in the last few days on
Yeah.
uh, being I don't like calling yourself a brand is kind of pompous and stupid, but certainly as a human being who's taking a stand out in the world. And look, I don't know that taking a stand is the right thing for every company, every brand. So it may not be for some, but I do think it's important for many and maybe most. Um, this is an extraordinary time. And even if you say things that are similar to things that others have said, I think taking a stand really does matter. What I learned this week, after we put out the Call for Unity episode and the blog that goes with it, first of all, you can try to do something that you think is as positive and as warm-hearted as possible, and you're going to piss people off. And I got a lot of hate this week from that. Um, so that's going to happen. So I think if you're gonna step into these waters, you got to realize no matter how you do it and how thoughtful you are and how balanced and so forth you're trying to be, you're going to piss people off because the reality is when you say anything about topics like racism, or the police or society or anything that anybody else might consider political, you're going to piss some people off. And I got some hate for it this week. But that said, what I'll tell you is, Jace, I don't think I've ever done anything that got such an extraordinary, overwhelming, positive response.
That's because it was
Um,
fantastic. That's why.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. It was a
And
fantastic piece, and I
I was
think it needed to be said. So I'm behind you 1,000%.
thank you. And I can, I you may not like me talk. You may not like me talking about this, but I was deeply honored by our conversation earlier about what you want to do with that and Grumpy Old Geeks.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it needs to be heard as many places as possible. So that's what's going to happen.
Thank
Anything
you.
that I can do to help you get that message out is it feels like my duty to do.
Thank you, brother. And we got so many incredible emails. I just cut and paste a couple of them. I mean, there were so many. Well done. Thank you for having the courage to say what else is willing to say. I have been experiencing depression the past 2 weeks. Just this morning, I basically decided to give up, to let the police be taken down and watch lawlessness and chaos spread. But your message gives me hope. Thank you. Um, and then this next one. Do you want to read this one, maybe, Jace?
Let's see here.
Or do you not have it in front of you?
No, I've got it. I've
Did
got
you
it.
put down the mailbag?
No, I've got it. I didn't know you were reading. Didn't know you were reading from our notes. Okay. I cried when I read this. You are so right and so eloquent. Thank you.
I mean, when somebody sends you an email like that because of something you wrote and said, it's pretty powerful. And then this might be, you know, he doesn't know I'm saying this, but I'm pretty sure he'd be okay with it. I've gotten to know Bill Walton over the last handful of years. Another incredible gift from having been writing and podcasting, and we maintained a friendship. And when he got the email of the call for unity, he sent me this note.
He says, "We all love you, Christopher, and we stand tall with you, united against evil. Stand tall, shine on. Much love and eternal gratitude. Thank you for my life, BW." How cool is that?
Right?
Yep.
How amazing is that? And so, and God bless Bill Walton. I think he's an American treasure. And I'll tell you, the last 8 or 9 months of my life have been the hardest. And Bill Walton has been an incredible support. What an unbelievable human being. So, but anyway, I guess getting back to the question from Charlotte, I think when you're going to take a stand, you got to be ready for a lot of bad and a lot of heat. But at the same time, if you take a stand and you try to be articulate and it works, you get bombarded in your mailbox from things along these lines. And at least for me personally, it's just my own feeling that right now is a time for those of us who can to make a difference, to make that difference. And so I decided to wade into waters that I don't normally wade into. And even though I got a lot of heat, I got way more love than heat. And so I'll take it. And by the way, if you disagree with me, then kind of go F yourself. That's okay with me.
Yeah, you got to prepare for the hugs and the pitchforks when you do these kinds of things.
Yes. And I think from a pure marketing point of view, legendary brands do distinguish themselves. They do force, and I use that word on purpose, a choice more than drive comparison. So I think that's okay. We cannot be for everybody. That's okay.
Right. I mean, what's the old adage? If you're selling to everybody, you're selling to nobody.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, what do we have next in the mailbag?
Next up, we have Eric. And Eric says, "In Play Bigger, you talk about a lightning strike to launch. I'm not sure where to begin to plan something like this."
Yeah, it's always a great question. So I think you always want to anchor a lightning strike to something, and so it can be anchored to an event.
Can you back up for a second and define a lightning strike for people who are new and don't and haven't read the book and know exactly what you're talking about? Because that would really help.
Okay, thanks. So, sorry, I forget. Sometimes I go straight to inside baseball.
Right.
Abigail agrees with you. She thinks we should define it. And so, what a lightning strike is a concentrated set of marketing activities that are kind of deeply integrated, focused on a core audience that is very well defined, that takes place in a very short period of time to produce maximum impact. And the reason we do lightning strikes is the traditional marketing model that everybody gets trained in, even if they don't understand they're getting trained in it, is a model called reach and frequency. And what reach and frequency says is the more often, the more people hear about my shit, the more likely is they're going to buy. Well, we live in a world today where we get between 40 to 60,000 marketing messages a day. Reach and frequency is virtually undoable for anybody today, even the biggest marketers. And so what a lightning strike is about is, rather than sort of spreading, peanut buttering, reach and frequency style, what we're going to do is we're going to pick maybe one, two, or at most three times a year. A big company might do one a quarter, um, but something in that range, where for a few days or a week, we are going to go big. And if you are in our target audience, our target demographic, you are going to hear from us. You are going to know we're there. And so the thinking is, I'd rather be deeply present in front of my core audience, my core target customer, for a short period of time, and sort of own their mind space for that short period of time, than sort of disappear into the noise all of the time. That's what it's predicated on.
Excellent.
And we're going to do an episode of the Podstorm soon. Sandwich, how to sort of get the mix of the two right. Okay, so is that clear?
Clear to me. That's for sure.
Jace?
Yep.
All right. Well, if it's clear to you, then good. This is why it's helpful to have a geek around to keep the marketing guy on a straight and narrow.
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about a lightning strike, Eric, you can tie it to an event, so a trade show, a conference. You could create your own event, some kind of activity you're going to do, maybe featuring your customers and thought leaders in your market space or your industry broadly, or any kind of event that you want to think about. Primarily an event focused on thought leadership and driving forward an agenda, or what we call a point of view. So you can do that. It can be a product launch. So you can turn a product launch into a lightning strike. And if you're going to do an event, you can create your own event, or sort of tack on to somebody else's. One of the stories I've told a couple times during the Podstorm, but I like it because it's a great example of a small e-entrepreneur. My buddy Joey Wolf, who owns Paradigm Sport here in Santa Cruz, which is a wonderful gym, created this event he called New Year's Day in September. And the point of view for the strike was, most people start sort of their get healthy, get fit program on Jan 1. Why not do it on Labor Day weekend and kind of get ahead of the curve, get fit heading into the holidays, and get a start on the new year kind of thing. So with that sort of idea, or that theme, or that point of view for the strike, he did an event. And so that's an example of a small entrepreneur sort of taking this concept, and he did some PR, and he included some other local businesses as well. And most importantly, he included his existing customers to invite their friends. So it's an example of a very simple kind of a lightning strike. And at the full other end of the spectrum, my friends at Splunk did a lightning strike when they launched their data to everything category in September of 2019. They did a VIP only, CEO only event at a very cool spot in San Francisco. They had a bunch of highfalutin, super ding dong speakers, and the keynote was Barack Obama. So that's sort of at the other end of the spectrum. And they launched a bunch of products, and they did a whole bunch of stuff, right? So you can do a multi-million-dollar event of your own, or you can do with Barack Obama or whoever else you want, or you can do September, New Year's in September. But the idea is to be creative, to be innovative, to go big for a very short period of time with something creative, so that if you're in our target demographic, you will be attracted to whatever it is we're doing, and we will be unavoidable for that few days or maybe week. Eric, I hope that helps.
Oh, I got to say, seeing the pictures of you with Barack were pretty cool. Like, opened my Twitter one day, or my Instagram one day, and I'm like, are you kidding me? What the hell?
And I've shared the stage with a lot of people in my life, but being the opening act for a former president is pretty cool.
I bet. All right, moving on to our next question. We got a question from Julie. Julie says, I'm a CMO, and I'm trying to get our company to take category design and marketing seriously and make some wise investments. But our CEO and CFO don't really believe in marketing. What do I do?
Well, Julie, this is a question I feel like I get a lot, and I think we might have even answered it before. I'm not sure. It keeps showing up. And my answer to most people is unsatisfying, and most people don't take me up on the advice, but I'll give it to you anyway. Quit.
I was going to say, isn't it quit?
Yeah. And to make the quit even clearer, Jace, do you remember that old horror movie, the Amityville?
Amityville Horror?
Yeah, this is questions and cocktails, and after a couple of shots of whiskey, Amityville gets hard to say.
I've never seen it. I was in that range where I was too young to sneak it on the HBO, and then by the time it came around that I could see it, I was just a little too old to care, so I missed it. So tell me about it.
Well, you see, I have a crazy uncle, my crazy uncle John, who I love, I absolutely adore, and he made a lot of bad judgments with me as a child, and he let me watch this movie when I don't know exactly how old, but way too young to watch it. That's for sure. Anyway, long story, way longer. Julie, in the Amityville Horror, what the movie's about is this nice young couple moves into this home in it's Amityville, New York, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, good, because I thought I was about to make an ass of myself. Anyway, it's this beautiful suburban area and this beautiful home and so forth, multiple stories, and as they're moving in, there's this scene early in the film where you get the creepy music and something's up, and there's a scene in the movie where the house talks to the couple, and as they're moving in, the house says to them, "Get out." Now, if you were moving into a new house, you and your gal, and you were walking up the flight of stairs to get to the upstairs bedroom, and the house says, "Get out," what would you do?
Get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out and go, I don't know if we need to call the cops or the church or somebody, but something weird's going on in that fucking house, right?
I'd call it an airstrike. I want to nuke the neighborhood. I don't know what the hell's going on in there.
We need some bombers and some Navy SEALs. Yeah. Somebody call Batman.
Some napalm and superheroes. Come on. If the house is talking to you and says, get out, follow the instructions.
So of course, that's not what happens. They keep moving into the house against the advice of the ghost that told them to get out. And of course, the house is possessed. And the movie ends with the house getting sucked into the bowels of the earth, and it goes really badly. And
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, just so you know. And so my point, Julie, is get out. There's no resolving this. There's no strategy. I've tried this a million times in my life. It's like, well, we'll just convince these guys to get it with marketing. We'll get them to read such and such a book or take such and such. There are just some people who think that marketing is bullshit and not worth very much. And if you're at a company run by executives like that, you're at a deep, deep disadvantage. And I get because of COVID and the recession, maybe now is not a good time to quit your job. But the likelihood a company that thinks marketing is bullshit, particularly today, particularly as a result of this recession, is going to be successful is pretty low. So I would just get out.
Yeah, it's like the deck stacked against you in a way you can't win. So why play the game?
Yeah, and actually, it reminds me of another thing, which is, of course, Jace, we just had Doug Merritt, CEO of Splunk, on Follow Your Different, and they've gone through this massive transformation over the last couple of years, as you know. And one of the interesting things was realizing that not only did he do this, did he not do this transformation as some kind of a secret or covert mission. His whole sort of reason for getting hired to be the CEO was the fact that the company wanted to go through this, and he had a plan, and they bought into the plan, and sort of all collectively signed up to it. So it's sort of the exact opposite of this. It's hard enough to be successful anyway, but when people are working against you as opposed to having everybody align, you're fucking finished.
Yeah, I mean, Doug at least put it on his job application. He's like, I'm coming to do this. Here it is. Let's do it.
And by the way, when it gets tough, you got to stand with me because we all agreed this is what we're doing, right?
Yep. That was a great episode. Love that.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Mustafa writes in, I'm a CMO, and I'm wondering about your thoughts on the importance of internal communications and what function inside the company should own it.
Yes. So I have maybe for some people a bit of a provocative opinion about this. I think the role of marketing internally is at least equal to the value externally, and in some ways more, because when people pick up a newspaper or read something online and they hear, for example, your CEO talking about the company's mission or talking about a new product that you just launched and how it's going to transform the category and make a difference to a giant number of people, things along those lines. One of my favorite examples, everybody loves to tell Steve Jobs stories. When he came back to Apple, he did a bunch of external interviews, and one of the things that he said in those interviews was he was so surprised at how many, quote, insanely great products, end quote, there were in the company's pipeline when he joined the company. Well, there were no fucking insanely great products in the pipeline when he joined the company. So when they see that, the engineers look at it in Time Magazine or Wall Street Journal, and they go, well, fuck, we better get busy building some insanely great products.
Yeah, we got to make some shit.
Right? And so there is an element of self-fulfilling prophecy to this thing. And then I also think legendary companies, as Eddie Yoon describes all the time, there's a distinction between missionaries and mercenaries. Legendary companies are on a mission. And so internal comms, keeps people stoked about the mission, focused on the mission, up to date on changes in the mission, things along those lines. And so when I was a CMO, I owned internal communications and partnered deeply with HR, and we were connected at the hip. But all of the communications that came out that weren't sort of just housekeeping related as it relates to HR stuff or IT stuff or things along those lines. But if they were any kind of a communication, then it came through marketing, and we had a group focused on internal marketing that sat next to HR and IT and finance and things along those lines, and worked with them to make sure that we were communicating effectively to our people. And I think it's really important that marketing has internal and external comms.
Excellent. Moving on. We've got Annika. Annika says, let me scroll. I'm the VP of corporate comms at a public software company, and I'm wondering how you think. Let me take that again. Sorry, long day. This is my third
what are
show.
we drinking? What are we drinking before the show here?
We're drinking water and Pedialyte.
Pedialyte? Was it a heavy night last night?
No. I've just been sick all week, so I'm trying to stay hydrated because, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Very good idea.
And not being hydrated is a bad thing. No, I've actually, since our last show, I've probably cut my drinking down by 90%. So it's all good.
Yeah, attaboy. I've been taking a little bit of a break myself. So
yeah, just the stuff that's going on. I need to have full faculties every now and again.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And you can't power lift alcohol all the time.
No, you can't. You can try, but you're never going to win.
You can try, but it ain't a great idea.
Annika writes in, I'm the VP of corporate comms at a public software company, and I'm wondering how you think about how PR and IR should work together. And what's IR?
IR is investor relations.
Yeah, I learned something new today.
Today must be comms day, communication day. So I love this question. And I think this is one, candidly, that a lot of CMOs get wrong. I think IR and PR, investor relations and public relations, need to be deeply, deeply, deeply connected, and therefore marketing and finance need to be deeply connected. Now, it would be highly unusual to have investor relations in marketing. It's almost always in finance, and I think that's fine. Like most of these things, reporting matters to some degree, but the reality is if you're a great company, reporting lines should not matter. So in the case of IR, we always built relationships with, I always tried to build a deep personal relationship with the CFO. If you're a CMO and you're not in lockstep with your CFO, bad. And that's probably true of everybody in the C-suite. The CFO job runs the budgeting, obviously a highly strategic position. And the best CFOs I know are way more than accountants. They're strategic minds. They're great at mergers and acquisitions and operations. And so a lot of companies, if they're smart, have a very big time CFO. And I think that's, particularly if you're planning on going public. So anyway, CMO, CFO, very close in lockstep. CMO with PR and IR and CFO should work together, for example, on the quarterly earnings announcements, on the script that the CEO and CFO are going to write, on the Q&A prep that happens ahead of the calls, on analyst days when we do Wall Street analyst days, any of those key strategic anytime we're communicating strategically with Wall Street, maybe you're going to go on a tour and visit with everybody, or certainly if you're planning an IPO roadshow, or you're going to do a secondary offering. In all of these situations, marketing and finance tied together at the hip. Um, Finance probably owns investor relations. That's the right answer. Working very closely with marketing, and we do all this stuff in lockstep. And oh, by the way, if and when we got bad shit to deal with, even more important, and in this case, if there's bad stuff to work with or to deal with, marketing, finance, and HR need to be very, 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 very tight together, working as one unit. And so I think marketing has a gigantic role to play in investor relations. There should be somebody in marketing that is, depending on the size of company, dedicated or close to dedicated to it. And if it's a bigger company, it may be a few people working in concert with the CFO's team.
All right. Next up, we have Faith. You've said it's a mistake for a new CMO to change the logo. Under what circumstances should we change the logo? Butt ugly logo, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's always a compelling one. And I know it would be terrible of me to say, well, you got to have faith, but I'm sorry. It's been a long effing week, hasn't it, Jace?
Yes, it has. I wish there was a way to audibly shake my head on the air, but
and so unless it's so butt ugly and so bad that like the company is screaming for it, as a new CMO, changing the logo, I think, is a strategic mistake, particularly in your first 6 months and ideally in your first year, because it sends a message to a lot of people that you're sort of tinkering with the creative as opposed to getting deep in the business. And so I think you want to be very thoughtful about what message you send, particularly to your peer set in the executive suite and to your CEO and board. You don't want to be seen as the moron who's like tinkering with the colors when there's some big problem that needs to get addressed, like, the Salesforce has no leads, or the website doesn't work, or, we have a giant category problem and we got to have a new strategy ASAP, or whatever else. So make sure we're getting on with the business at hand. You want to be seen as somebody who's deep in the business, making a giant difference, particularly for the field sales organization and the product and engineering organization. Get deep in those parts of the company. When should you change the logo? I think the logo should be changed when there's a meaningful business transformation going on of some kind. So if you're deeply expanding your product line, or maybe you just did an acquisition, or you did a new category design and there's a new point of view and maybe a new tagline, and the languaging that you're using is so. I think what you want to do when you're doing a logo change, what you're really declaring is a before and an after. You're saying that there's something that's happened that is a demarcation point for the company, the brand, and ideally the category. And so now, look, it might be that you have a butt ugly logo, and did we talk about this? I'm having a bit of a deja vu.
we talked about the logo stuff last episode on the Q&A.
Okay.
But and you said that new CMOs should not touch the logo. I think that's how this ties in.
This came about, yeah. So and now I'm remembering. I think what we talked about last time is if you're a startup and you're a year old and you've been burning through your crazy crazy uncle's money.
What have you been drinking this morning?
Yeah, fucking A. And you just raised a Series A or a real seed round, and you got a little bit of money, and now your product's coming out of beta or whatever it is. You've grown up a little, and you have that $2 Fiverr logo we talked about. Then it might make sense as something to do early on. But in general, I think when you want to do it is you want to make sure you're focused on stuff that really is going to make a difference to the business as quickly as possible, particularly if you're new. And then you want to change the logo when there's some other commensurate change going on, and you want to sort of declare a before and an after. And in that way, the change of the logo is serving a bigger purpose. You're not just like changing the drapes.
I think about that when you're talking about SaaS companies. software as a service companies, or now they call them just cloud companies. Like at Technorati, we did a major logo redesign around our launch from 1.0 to 2.0, and we spent several months on it. And when the new version came out, we get Technorati 2.0. Here's a new logo to come with Technorati 2.0. And then I think about companies like Slack that did a major logo redesign recently. That I don't know if you have seen the Slack logo recently from the previous logo. The old logo was like a hashtag with some plaid and stuff, and now it's a pinwheel of penises that's really hard to
Oh
unsee
God.
once you've seen it.
Oh
But
no.
there was no real point release to the software when they did that. And I thought it was a really bad idea to change that logo and their branding at that point when there was really nothing to do that was a big jump in the
Oh yeah, now I
software.
see it.
Yeah, it's a
The other thing
pinwheel of
that's terrible
penises.
about the Slack logo is it looks like a billion other logos, like the
It's a
kaleidoscope.
Google color, you know?
But I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen that kaleidoscope of penises. I mean, it's
Sounds like my show. What are we talking about? Um,
oh God,
no,
things are
it
deteriorating.
differentiates itself in no way from any other random like Google product logo, or any other business product logo. The old logo was fantastic, and they changed it for no reason, as far as at least on the outside that we could see. It wasn't a major point release in the software. The software pretty much stayed the same because they work on an iterative design philosophy where they're always iterating on the software. So there's no real big giant leaps as they
Hmm.
go. And I think that is one of the most unsuccessful logo redesigns recently.
Well, and the other thing about it, this is sort of classic useless corporate branding. I got taught this by my buddy John Muhlenberg, who's a legendary corporate designer. He was on the podcast quite a while ago, which is anything you add to the words needs to multiply the value of the words in some way,
Mm.
shape, or form. So that's sort of the John Bielenberg teaching. And then the other huge corporate design influence in my life is Peggy Burke from 1185 Design. And she said, never invest in an image you cannot own. And so if you take those two ideas together and you say, okay, well, if you're going to add imagery or colors or blobs or whatever you're going to add that's more than words, those things multiple words. And then if you say, Peggy Burke says, don't invest in an image that you cannot own. And then you look at the Slack logo. I mean, what does that make you think if you sort of use those two lenses from a geek's perspective?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand it personally. Like there's nothing there that's going to enhance their brand in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And so they have an image they can't own that's pretty
Right.
forgettable, and it doesn't multiply the value of the word. But other than that, they did
Yeah.
it great. I wonder if
Fantastico.
they recently got a I wonder if they recently got a new CMO. Um,
I don't know. I don't know.
Now, by the
Uh,
way, not to be overly shitty, Stuart Butterfield and the team at Slack have done an absolutely legendary job in the social business space, the social enterprise space. So hats off to you. Way to go.
yeah, I've known Stuart since before he sold Flickr to Yahoo. So from way back in the day, Stuart's a great guy. We had a falling out in a bit because little things that always happen in San Francisco, but I still think he's a fantastic guy and an incredibly smart businessman. And I love the team over there. Cal Henderson is one of the most awesome CTOs in the world. And that's why I trust those guys with my data any day of the week. Those guys they're just good. And here's the deal. I want them to go design another video game because every time they design a video game, we get a great product out of it. Because first game they designed, we got Flickr. Second video game they designed, we got Slack. So I'm like, guys, get on it. Give me another video game. Tell me what we're going to have next.
I love it. And I love that a bunch of, really, I think it's very telling that a bunch of video game folks created, a monster new enterprise app and a whole new category. And I think they owe some of us, the early pioneers in the enterprise business social space, some money, but that's a different conversation.
I'd take it. Trust me.
At least a tip of the hat, please. A
A
bottle
free
of whiskey
account or
might be nice.
something.
Exactly. A stripogram, something.
Oh man, they're from
All
Canada.
right.
I
Do
don't
we
think
have
that
anything
works.
else in the
Oh wait,
mailbag?
you're
I
from
feel that we're
Canada. What am I talking
digressing.
about? All right, our final question of the day comes from Brent. We are moving our user conference online like everyone else. How do we create an experience that our customers will love and that is different when every event is going digital?
That is a legendary question and a super tough one to answer. Um, Here's the first thing I would say to you. Um, Try to do as many small online events as possible as betas as you get closer to your event, because you're going to learn a lot as you do them. That's the first thing. The second thing is, the guy that I know that is the greatest in the world at this is a guy named John Berghoff from Exchange. His company Exchange is unbelievable, and they do this in the physical world. They create these high powered sort of I don't know what the fuck to call them, learning experiences for corporations, where they deal with a tough topic and they get people together and they ask powerful questions and they create a powerful environment for dialogue. And they just, so they're the sort of greatest workshop construction company I've ever seen. They yield a result at the end of a workshop or a seminar like nobody else. And so they, once C19 happened, their business, like anybody else who didn't need anything in the event or space or anything that required anybody to get together, got smashed. And so what they did, they've recreated all of it using it on technologies with like Zoom and the like. And they have this whole thing about where they start something off, they ask a question, they ask you to get working on that question, they present some stuff, and then apparently, and you're going to have to excuse me here, Jace, you may know about this. I don't understand all the technical stuff, but in Zoom you can break people into sub rooms and this and that, right? And then pull them all back together. You know
You're
about
asking the
this?
wrong guy about Zoom. I can
Oh,
barely
I
make
thought
it.
you
I
might
can barely
know.
make it load.
So anyway, John and the folks at Exchange use the fact that you can bring big groups of people together, break them into groups, get them to go work on things. So the bottom line is, he has been able to create a highly engaged digital group learning experience by bringing people together, sharing some stuff, breaking them apart, having them do some shit, come back, present what they do, interact. Da, 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 da. And so I guess all I'm saying to you is, it's clear that there are multiple interaction or engagement ways that really work in this world. These Q&A type things that we're doing here, there's lots of them. And so I would get experimenting ASAP on trying to do deeply engaged stuff with people, as opposed to just do what most people do, which is essentially it's one long fucking webinar, which is fine. There might be part of your user conference or customer conference that needs to be webinar like. If your CEO or your head of engineering or whoever it is, and some of your customers, there are presentations you'll want to give, by all means, and those are more webinar-y in their feel or format. But I would tilt you towards the John Berghoff Exchange model of connecting people, and getting them together and breaking them apart, and making it much more highly collaborative and engaged. Because I think I've done a couple of these with them since C19 hit on marketing, and they've been insanely well received. And I think in some ways, as crazy as it sounds, they can actually be more effective from a learning perspective than some of the shit that you can do in person. It's certainly a unique experience when you get it right.
Excellent. Well, that's what we have for today. Our final Q&A for the Podstorm.
Well, there we go. And we have how many episodes? By the time this goes live, we'll have 2 episodes to go, right?
Yep, we got 2. This will be broken into 2 this weekend for the audio listeners. And then we've got 2 new episodes for the rest of the week, for Monday and Tuesday. And we're going to put a button in it.
Well, Jason, thank you so much. It's great to spend this time with you. And this Podstorm would never have happened without you. So thank you for being the greatest podcast producer and editor in the history of podcasting.
Well,
And
thank
for
you for
working
having
your
me. And shout out to our friend Jamie at Bottleneck Virtual Assistants because he is the third leg in that stool, and
Well, and
everybody
what
at
we're going to do,
Bottleneck.
we could tell everybody our second to last episode will be the lightning and peanut butter. Jason, Jamie, and I are going to get together and we're going to talk about what we learned and what was going on. There's a lot that we're going to sort of go behind the music. There was a lot going on in all of our lives over the last 30 days as we did this Podstorm, and we'll share some of our learnings. He was sharing some download stats with me today that I could not. I was absolutely stunned about. So we'll share some of that. Maybe hopefully inspire others to Podstorm, and go behind the curtain and sort of do a fun, casual conversation to wrap. And then I think do we deserve a week off, Chase?
It's up to you, man. You're the boss.
Well, I ain't the boss of shit, but I think for Lochhead on Marketing, we'll probably take a week off, and then we'll get back into the salt mines.
Get back into the swing of things.
Yeah. All right, Chase. Anything else?
No. Have a great weekend, everybody. Seriously, try and stay safe, stay inside, and if you have to go out, wear your masks.
Thank you, brother. Let's get unified.